We're in Psalm 25, and I just have to unfold verse 12 a little more, verse 12 and 13, before we move on to verse 14. So we'll try to do both. So let's read verse 12 again. What is man? What man is he that feareth the Lord? Him shall he teach in the way that he shall choose, and his soul shall dwell at ease, and his seed shall inherit the earth. So you have this cause and effect, but the counter narrative is also true, okay? What man is he that feareth man, and his soul shall not dwell at ease? I'm paraphrasing the inverse of this. And his seed, he will not be taught in the way that God chooses. So here's what I'm driving at. I was thinking about this verse after we wrapped up yesterday's episode. What man is he that feareth the Lord? A good many years in my life, practically speaking, I wouldn't have said it this way, but in the rearview mirror, it's easy to see that it was the actuality. I had a greater fear of man than I did of the Lord. And when you have a greater fear of anything else other than God, then those other things, that person, those people, that environment, that workplace, whatever you fear ends up being your Lord and ends up setting the agenda for your life. And all other lords other than God, other than Jesus, all other lords are oppressors. They eventually end up oppressing you. Why? Because no other Lord knows the way that is right for you in the eyes of God. No other Lord knows the right steps and the right script for your life. Every other Lord will write you into its own script, or you'll write yourself into your own script the way you're trying to do it. But when you fear man, you'll be caving into everybody else's demands and expectations and wishes rather than letting God set the agenda. And so fear of man is exactly the opposite. Fear of man leads me to not understanding God's way for me, the way that God would choose for me, which leaves my soul vexed. Not dwelling at ease, not flourishing in health, but vexed and spread too thin and emotionally frazzled and fragmented and anxious and fearful and dwelling with worry and anxiety and hostage to pleasing men and hostage to overwork and exhaustion and depletion and all kinds of terrible things that we do to ourselves. Why? Because we fear man more than we fear God. It can happen to all of us. Probably on some level it does. But then God unfolds circumstances in our lives that sets us free. He says, follow me. And we think we're losing. But in actuality, we're being set free. We're being set free from others setting the agenda, and all of a sudden God sets the agenda. And he proves himself to be a loving father that leads his sheep to still waters and green pasture. And he teaches us in the way that he chooses, and the way that God would choose for you is never oppressive. It's never going against your design. It actually causes you to flourish in the greatest kind of health, restful physically, restful emotionally and spiritually, provided for, secure, meaningful, significant, hopeful. It's all of these things and more. It's all the things we look for in all the other places, but we never really come to these things until we fear God more than we fear anything else. Our reverence, our respect, our submission, our surrender to God is the thing that puts us in the place of walking the path that he has chosen for us. And that path, sooner or later, that path turns out to be better than you imagined, better than you dreamed, more flourishing and more wonderful and more joyful. God is so, so good. He's never an oppressive Lord. And so, my friend, I want to challenge you again with 12 and 13. Fear God more than you fear anything else. Maybe there's someone in your life that you're afraid of their displeasure, their disapproval, the power they hold in your life. They can fire you, they can demote you, they can ostracize you, they can ruin you. And so you fear them. And so they call the shots. And that person ends up being your Lord. And God wants to teach you a different way. But you're going to have the courage to follow God over others and have the courage to displease others rather than displeasing God. Isn't that what Daniel did? Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat. When Daniel had the choice of displeasing God or displeasing the king, he set aside the fear of man and he chose to fear the Lord. And what Daniel didn't realize is that God was already working on his behalf. And there's a verse that's right after Daniel's decision that says, "Now God." And if you ever want to see the now God moments of your life, you're going to have to draw a line in the sand and say, I fear my God more than I fear the rejection of men or the collapse of circumstances around me. I'm going to fear my God. That's when the now God verse unfolds. Now God brought Daniel into favor with the prince of the eunuchs. God was already working on Daniel's behalf, but he would have never seen it if he had continued to fear the king more than he feared God. So my friend, decide you'll fear God. Decide you will learn his way, no matter what it costs you. And it won't be long before you discover the way he chooses for you truly puts your soul at ease. It's a pretty special thing. Hey, happy Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.